Let me tell you why I am supportive of this Article 5 Balanced Budget Amendment Initiative. It's real simple. If we don't do it, the states, it will not get done. I have had the opportunity to be on the radio 3 years prior to ever running for president, listening to the people of this country, watching and analyzing what's going on in Washington, D.C. Ran for president of the United States of America. My campaign was sabotaged, and now back on the radio again as a radio talk show host. But what a lot of people don't realize that as a radio talk show host, you're also a radio listening host. Because every day I listen to the people. Many of you listen to the people whenever you run into them in your daily lives because you represent them in your state legislatures. One of the conclusions that I have come to more clearly now than before is that in this country we have a new war that we are fighting. This new war that we are fighting is between the political class in Washington, D.C. and the working class in the rest of the nation. I was in Washington just yesterday giving a speech at the National Conservative Students Conference, where they had about 400 college students from all over the country representing universities and colleges from all over the nation. One thing I took away from that is that a lot of these young people get it when you give them the information, you give them the truth. But if they don't know, they can't help you. But what was interesting was on my way to Heritage to do my show remotely, I had a driver by the name of Ben who said that their slow week in Washington is going to start on Thursday when Congress goes home. I said, you sound as if you're disappointed with that. He said, well, it's our slow week business-wise. I said, well, let me tell you something, Ben. The rest of America is applauding the fact that we hope the suckers stay home longer than 5 weeks. The problem is they hurt us when they're in D.C. There is this war between the political class in Washington, D.C. and what I call the working class. You are part of the working class in the states, period. But a lot of your constituency do not realize the opportunity we have with this Article 5 Balanced Budget Amendment Initiative. I've been talking about it on my radio show. I put it on my website. We all have got to continue to promote it and educate people. And I firmly believe whenever I hear somebody ask me, is it too late to turn this country around? My answer is an emphatic no. And the reason is, it goes back to what Abraham Lincoln said when he said that when the people have the truth, they will make the right decisions. This is about giving people the truth, letting them know the power that they do have. Many of them feel helpless. Many of them feel powerless. And you represent that conduit to empower them with information and knowledge. That's what this is about. I wasn't totally aware of the Article 5 initiative when I was running for president. You get caught up in campaigning and you get in a bubble. And one of the things that I have shared with people who run for office, I said, beware, when you run for Congress or the Senate or the president, you're going to get in this bubble and it's going to be hard for you to learn anything new. You think you know everything, but you don't. That's the problem we have in Washington, D.C. right now. We have a president and an administration and advisors who think they know everything, but they don't. So they keep making mistakes over and over and over and over that only you at the state legislature level can correct. You represent what I entitled one of my books, An Army of Davids. That's what you represent. The nightly news doesn't talk about you. They don't talk about the action of the state legislature unless it's something that the liberals don't agree with. They don't give you the headline. They don't give you the attention. But you are that army of Davids out there fighting Goliath. And that's what this is about. And remember, as part of the army of David, David wasn't looking for the headlines. David wasn't looking for the accolades. David simply recognized the job that needed to be done, and he did it with a slingshot and 5 smooth stones. The difference between David and the 5 smooth stones is we have a slingshot and 50 smooth stones. 50 smooth stones. Let me tell you about the slingshot. It's we the people. It's we the people. That's where we get energized. That's how we break through the barriers that have been created by the political class in Washington, D.C. The people. Our greatest collective weapon is the people in our states. And we sometimes underestimate the power of the people. So as part of this army of Davids, we've got 50 smooth stones, and the people represent our slingshot. Some of this you're going to hear again tomorrow, but I didn't bring 2 speeches, I brought 1. Because it's one message. Win. Win. And that means we've got to make this happen. I have people calling my radio show all the time, and they want to go off on this issue. They want to go off on this issue. I said, look, the reason that the political class keeps winning is because we lose focus over here, and we don't prioritize and focus on what we can do now, do it effectively, and we go all over the map. The worst thing that someone in the federal political class can say to you is, we'll look into it and get back to you. And you're still waiting. Bill Clinton said that to me back in the early 1990s on Hillary Care, when I busted him on his numbers that he was lying to the American people about what it was going to do. Send me your numbers and I'll get back to you. That was in 1994. This is 2014. 20 years later, I have not heard from Bill Clinton. So that's why we got to do this from the states up. It's imperative, folks, that we do it from the states up. I want to remind you, in closing, of a few things. First, when the founders of this nation decided that they'd had enough, they didn't ask permission of old King George. Think about that. When Abraham Lincoln decided that a divided nation could not stand, he did not ask permission or take a poll to see if we should fight to keep this nation together. When people were fighting for their civil rights, did they ask permission for the nation to live up to that ideal? They did not ask permission. They fought to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 signed. And so today, we don't have to ask permission to do this. We have to do this. If we ask the political class, they will never give us permission. They will even find ways to lie about why it shouldn't be done. But the work that Lou and his team have done to refute the lies is part of the weapons you need to refute it when you run into it. When I was speaking to those 400 college students from across the country just yesterday in D.C., and in the last 2 years, I have spoken to over 140 colleges and universities of conservative or Republican clubs on these campuses around this nation. Don't let the mainstream media fool you into thinking that all of them are liberal campuses. They might be, but there are a lot of conservative students who get it. When I was speaking to these energetic, wide-eyed young college students yesterday in Washington, D.C. at the National Conservative Students Conference in Washington, sponsored by Young America's Foundation, I noticed that certain things that I said caused them to be so excited that it created what we often call applause lines. I don't say things to create applause. I say things because of my passion and from my heart. And if it generates an applause, so be it. But just to let you know why I'm optimistic about our opportunity and our chances of doing this, allow me to share with you just one of the applause lines that I got from these 400 students. The first one was, "The American dream is still alive." They needed to hear that. And the second one that I was not expecting was when I reminded them of the Declaration of Independence and those ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I shared with them the story of when a caller to my radio show called in one night when I was doing a nighttime show and said, "Mr. Cain, I'm frustrated with this nation. I'm frustrated with the direction that we are going. I'm frustrated because I don't know what to do." And I said to this young man on the phone, and I shared this with the students yesterday, "Go get a copy of the Declaration of Independence," and he did. And I said, "Turn to the part where it talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," and he did. While on the phone, we waited. Most talk show hosts wouldn't sit and wait while somebody go to get a copy of the Declaration of Independence. And when he came back, he says, "Okay, I have found the passage in the Declaration of Independence." I said, "Here's what you can do. Keep reading. Don't stop there. Because if you keep reading, it says when any form of government becomes destructive of those ideals, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it." And the students stood and applauded. They get it. They get it. And we get it. And that has to be our inspiration to move this forward. Last point. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to be quick. But if we stay focused on achieving this one objective in the relatively short term, I know that there are a lot of things out there that we ought to be working on, a lot of things that are wrong. The American people and the patriots of this country, not the liberals, they need to see one victory to be encouraged. I can't think of a better one to show them that there is a mechanism to change things. Stay focused on this. Tee up other issues. When we presented this in Norfolk, Virginia recently, and Lou made the presentation and somebody wanted to say, well, what about repealing the 16th Amendment? What about replacing the tax code? Lou reminded them, we will get to that. But if we demonstrate to the American people on this one issue that this approach can win, the floodgates open. The floodgates open. And so as one of the soldiers in this army of Davids, I want to thank you all for what you all are doing. And I want to thank Lou and all of the folk that are working with him for what they are doing to tee this up in order to be able to arm our slingshot. Remember, our slingshot is we the people, we the people. And as I say to folk all the time on the radio, we the people are still in charge of this country. It just needs this army of Davids to lead them. That's what you do. And don't you forget it. Thank you very much.